It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Yo, how are you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are doing well. Turn off my phone as someone's trying to call me at the moment. All right. So, as usual, got a nice group of people in here right now too already. This is awesome. You guys are awesome that come in here every week. It's really cool to see a lot of the same people and then also to see the new people that come in here. It's really neat. It's very humbling actually to see the response and the chats and the emails and all that good stuff. And so a couple questions that kind of came up real quick before I get into my monologue and all that crap I need to talk about. Someone had asked about the mag ring. I happen to have one sitting on my desk right now. So I got this from my supply house. It's called Mag Ring, and it's a magnetic ring. It has a really heavy-duty magnet on the back, and I'll hang my field piece manifold from it. I just got it at my supply house. Honestly, I know that True Tech Tools doesn't sell them. Just Google search Mag Ring. You might be able to find it there. I'm sure you can find it on Amazon or something. I'm sure if you've got ingenuity, you can probably make one of these. It's just a ring with a magnet stuck to it. But, you know, when you go to like Harbor Freight and stuff like that, they have them, but they're not strong like this one. This one's really, really strong. But yeah, I don't know where else to tell you. I got it from my supply house, RSD is where I got it from. So, how to polish a turd? Well, you get some Viper cleaner, okay, from Refrigeration Technologies, from True Tech Tools. You want me to just name off all the sponsors? No. I like that term, polishing a turd. That's one of my favorite titles to put on a video. I think I've used it maybe 2 times now, but I like that title. That's a funny one. It really tells you how I feel about that. So, oh, the other thing, someone was asking me what I'm drinking tonight. So, yeah, that whole I'm not going to drink for the rest of my life for maybe a couple weeks or maybe a week or maybe a couple days. It ended up being about a couple days. Today is a Black Butte Porter. It's like got a coffee taste to it. Super good. I have a Rogue down here too. If I run out, I've only got a couple of those Black Butte Porters. I went up to our local mountains this weekend and hung out with my dad, and I found those at the local grocery store when I was up there. Super good. I like dark ales, dark porters, dark beer in general. Really good. So, Yeah. All right. Let's start this off good. Okay. My name is Chris. I'm an HVACR service technician here in Southern California. There's a lot of new viewers to this channel. They keep coming up every week and I get all kinds of comments. So that's why I'm going to start these off with the intro like I usually do. Okay. I do these live streams to supplement the videos that I upload on YouTube. Okay. I do typically 2 videos a week, although last week I did do 3 videos. Yeah. Last week was the 3 videos, but typically 2 videos a week. And the whole point of these live streams is to answer those questions. Okay. It helps for me because it gives me time to spend with my family, so I'm not staring at my phone all day long. So most people don't know, like today I got off work a little bit early, but typically I get in my office around 2 or 3-ish. Today I got in my office around noon, and I've been working on, answering emails, comments, questions, and that kind of stuff, and then inviting people to the live stream and coming up with like a little script, a list of things to talk about and all that good stuff. So I do spend a lot of time kind of getting these streams ready and just kind of coming up with a list of stuff, answering. I don't really answer a lot of emails throughout the week. I have been kind of laying off of that because unless it's something that's really easy to answer or if it's a pressing question, I'll usually jump on it. But yeah, that's the whole point of doing these live streams, is just to answer your guys' questions. Okay. I really, really appreciate the support that you guys give. I love reading the comments. Okay. If you guys could do me a favor on this live stream, give the video a thumbs up. It definitely helps it. Okay. As my moderator has said in the chat, if you guys do have questions you want me to address, put them in caps lock. If I miss your question, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com and I'll try to get to it. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick look at the chat, and then I'm going to kind of go off on my little list of things to talk about. Naka, thank you so very much for that super chat. That's really awesome, bud. Thank you very much. Yeah, there is a Discord server. You guys can feel free to join it. Usually before the stream, we hang out inside the Discord server. I pop in there, I'd say maybe 10, 15 minutes a day, on average, and just say hi to everybody and stuff. But then there's a whole, chat going on inside the Discord server. So the Discord server, yeah, I'll put the code in. The moderator bot's going to put it in there. I was going to say I know how to do it, but here, I'll just put the code, the link right now for those of you guys that are interested. Here you go. Control V, boom, right there. So feel free to join the server if you guys like. But don't expect me to be in there all the time because I'm not going to. It's the same thing. Like, I don't want to wait, not waste. I don't want to spend all my time away from my family staring at my phone, that kind of stuff. So I do have to say my family has been gone for 4 or 5 days now, and I am so ready for them to come back. Basically, I think they left on Thursday. They went up for a little vacation with some family, and I wasn't able to go just because of work and stuff. And I've been home alone, and it's boring. It's boring. I can only eat out so many times. Yeah, I don't like it. My wife's cat is driving me nuts, following me around the house, wants me to pet it all the time. Stupid cat. Anyways, all right. So questions, cap lock. Okay, so what happens when you mix R22 and 422D in a mini split? Well, that's a great question. So what happens is you just became a chemist that didn't understand what he was doing, and we don't know what's going to happen, okay, because there's 2 different chemical compounds in there. And the pressure-temperature relationship is going to be a mystery depending on how much 22 is left in the system and how much 422D is left in there, okay? I'm not a fan of mixing anything. It's just a mess, and it creates havoc for everybody else. If you are going to use an alternative refrigerant, I highly, highly suggest you remove the old refrigerant, follow all installation practices. I've said this a million times. Most manufacturers out there, there's some misleading information, okay, first off, from some supply houses and different things like that, but you can never mix refrigerants, period. Any alternative to R22, you do not mix it with R22 or any other refrigerants because we are not chemists, okay? What's going to happen? I don't know. I mean, excuse me, if I was professional, I'd have a cough button. And this fancy mixer, I think I do, but if I push something, I might not know how to turn it back on. And so I just leave that be. All I know how to do is work the faders up and down, and that's about it with that mixer. So, yeah, just mixing refrigerants is no bueno, okay? Don't go down that path. What did I do today? Just a couple service calls. Went and ran 2 service calls. I got a little bit of video footage, so might be turning something into a video, and nothing too crazy because I was home by noon, so was able to get in here and get ready for the stream. So, all right, let's see what else we got going on in here. Wait, will I eat out after seeing those nasty refrigerators and ice machines? Yeah, I eat out. Yeah, ignorance is bliss. I mean, you know, even at some of the restaurants that I work at, I'll eat out. Hell, I even get ice in my drinks when I get a drink. If I get an iced tea, I'm going to get ice in it. Jose Ramos, thank you so very much for that super chat. You guys, I'm going to address this right now just like I do all the time. The super chats are awesome, but they are not required. Okay, guys, I really do appreciate them, and I don't want to downplay anything you guys are trying to do. It's super nice of you guys, but don't spend any money that you guys don't have, okay? Don't feel obligated or anything like that. You guys do not have to do super chats to get questions answered or anything like that, okay? I try to pay attention as much as possible. But again, thank you guys so very much, okay? So let's get on with it, okay? The last 2 videos that I released this week, well, actually 3 videos, right? I think this week was the 3 videos. I'm almost positive it was. Well, maybe it was just the 2, whatever. So the 2 videos I have this week, the first one was polishing a turd, and that was on 723. That was a York package unit that had a indoor blower motor that was bad, and then the blower wheel had actually rubbed against the side of the housing. So what I did was I pulled that blower assembly out, which was a pain in the butt to get out of that tiny unit. Took the whole blower assembly over to my supply house and had them rebuild it. I have a special motor rebuilding supply house, and they take care of all that stuff. So they rebuilt it for me, and then I just cleaned up the unit, and everything was good after that. So there wasn't really a lot of meat to that video. You know, I kind of made a comment in the description of the video is that, you know, sometimes, or I shouldn't say sometimes, between all these really fancy, intricate calls that I get and I make these cool videos about, there's usually about 5 or 6 of just these plain Jane go out and change a contactor videos, like nothing too crazy. So, you know, my service calls and stuff that I do are not always these epic, crazy things that just go on forever. It just so happens that I usually get to film those, so they make good videos, and it makes it seem like I do that crazy stuff all the time, but it's really not. I get a lot of silly calls and, you know, just changing thermostats and all that different stuff. So, anyways, all right, the next video that I had was a Train Voyager callback. That was an interesting one, and I have lots of things I want to talk about that too. But it was a follow-up visit behind another one of my service technicians that had gone out there. And we had, when my technician was out there, I remember him talking to me on the phone, and he had seen a VFD fault inside the human interface, or the display. But then I vaguely remember him telling me that he saw a drain overflow fault too. And he didn't catch the fact that the drain pan was actually plugged up, but it was dry. That was the interesting thing, okay? Joseph Orris, thank you so very much, man. Really, really appreciate that, man. So, you know, it's really easy for us to get like a one-track mind when we go out to do a service call. And it happens, though. And I'm not, you know, I mean, life happens. Nobody's perfect. Nobody figures everything out. So, you know, it's easy to go out there and just kind of get tunnel vision and see a blower fault and ignore everything else, when in fact the simplest thing was going on with that unit. Whatever was going on with the blower, I don't know what the blower fault was. It hasn't reproduced the blower fault at all. And when I went back out there was no blower fault in the history either. Okay, it was nothing but overflows for the drain pan. So, you know, we have to be thorough. We have to be careful. We have to look at the big picture. All right. If you see a drain pan fault, you need to investigate it. You need to blow out the drains. You know, just because the drain pan's empty doesn't mean that the drain's not plugged up. You guys saw that in the video, okay? And then I went ahead and did every other AC on that roof too. You know, it's really important to understand that there's opportunities all around us to stay busy, to keep working, to get hours, to make money, all that good stuff. We don't have to cheat. We don't have to steal. We don't have to lie to the customer. I went out there to go back on a callback, right? And I was able to talk to the customer and say, hey, all your AC filters are plugged, all your belts are plugged, and I need to clean the coils, you know? And I got to sell them all that. And it was, you know, justifiable. There was nothing wrong with what I did and what I sold them. The customer was happy because I found a potential problem that was going to save them money in the future. Okay, so remember, the whole big picture thing isn't just to be a pain in the ass. It's to keep us busy. It's to keep us working, you know? So take a step back, guys. Remember, the whole take a step back too. It's not just a look at the big picture. It's take a step back and slow down. Smell the roses, look around, you know, talk to the customer, ask questions. You know, it helps us to find out what's going on with everything, all right? Let's go ahead. And so that's the 2 videos that I had this last week. Something I want to cover right now, we've already got quite a few people, and I think this is a really important topic. I talk about this every couple months, okay? And I like to fall back on it and just remind people. I have a video series with my wife, and it's called How We Live the HVACR Life. Terry. Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm going to cover that right now, Terry. Thank you very much. That's a great, awesome super chat. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to cover that here in just a second. So I did a video series with my life called How We Live the HVACR Life, okay? And in that series, you guys can go back on my YouTube channel and you can see we kind of discuss a few things. The one thing that I think is the most important thing that I discuss that I want to get to everybody is that we need to talk. We need to not bottle things up, all right? We work in a very stressful job. We're out working. We're in the heat. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And little things, they nip at you. They nip at you. And oftentimes, I was very guilty of this, of not talking about it. I just bottled it up, and I bottled it up until I snapped, okay? And snapping usually entailed me punching a hole through a wall, throwing a tool across the roof, when in fact I didn't need to, okay? I'm going to kind of segue over to mental health. Guys, don't be ashamed to talk about mental health. Don't be ashamed to talk about depression, anxiety, any of that stuff. It's really important. I decided the one time, I've told the story a million times. You guys can go listen to my How We Live the HVACR Life. I'll go more in depth than that. But what happened was I got really, really angry. I punched a wall. My family wasn't home. I felt very ashamed because now there was a hole in the wall. And I went to go see a doctor, realized that I had some issues. I had some mental issues for sure, okay? I was diagnosed bipolar, a couple other things, and I got help. I talked to the doctor. I saw a therapist for a while. So, guys, this sounds silly. A lot of people don't like to talk about this stuff, but it's really important, okay? Especially right now with everything going on. You guys need to talk to someone, whether it be your wife, whether it be a friend, your spouse, whoever, all right? A doctor. You guys need to communicate and talk to someone. Don't bottle up all this crap. It sucks, okay? I know generationally, this wasn't something that we would talk about in the past, okay? I can tell you right now, I remember talking to my grandfather. This was about 10 years ago that I went and saw a doctor. I remember telling my grandfather that I went and saw a doctor because I was dealing with anxiety and stuff. And I remember that, you know, the look on my grandfather's face, like confusion, embarrassment for me. And he was just like, why would you talk to a doctor about that stuff? Because you got to remember, generationally in the past, that was something that you didn't talk about. You just buried that. You just manned up and moved on, right? It's real, guys. Get help, okay? Talk to a doctor, talk to a family member, all right? Really, really reach out. Don't be ashamed to talk about that stuff. I know that this isn't a very big topic right now. You know, I'm sure I'm losing viewers right now, but I really don't care because this is a really important thing, especially in the midst of this pandemic. I know a lot of people feel hopeless and helpless. Seek help. You're not in it alone. Okay, cool. I'm going to get back on with everything else. Okay. Callbacks. Let's talk about callbacks. So in my recent video, we were going back on a callback. Callbacks are a pain in the butt, you guys, but the mistakes that I've made over my career have made me the person that I am today. Kind of a screw up, kind of a silly loser, different things like that, but that's whatever. We can get on that topic later. But seriously, all joking aside, callbacks, they make you the person that you are. You need to make sure that if you do get callbacks or you go back on other people's callbacks, you learn from them, okay? Sometimes it can be the simplest of things, like in my recent video where we had a plugged up drain. It's the simplest of stuff, but it's so important to make sure that you take care of that stuff. I have this little thing in the back of my head that always talks to me. And when in my head, I talk to myself, that kind of stuff. Anyways, that's a whole nother subject. But, when I finish a job, there's like a nagging something in the back of my head saying, hey, think twice, look at this again. And oftentimes I ignore that. And usually when I ignore it, it comes back to bite me in the butt. Okay. So trust your gut. When you're doing a service call, if something's telling you to spend a little bit more time, then spend a little bit more time. Trust your gut. Most of the time, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You spend an extra 10 minutes and you don't find anything? Perfect. There's nothing worse than shaving 10 minutes off of the service call, not finding the problem, and then the customer has to call you back out. Your boss is pissed. The customer's pissed. It just looks bad all the way around, okay? So it's very important. Terry, he had said that, and again, thanks so much for that super chat, Terry. He said, be careful changing over to POE. It will, it will. Okay, so when you're changing over from mineral oil to polyester oil, something that you have to remember is that polyester oil, or POE, is a great solvent, okay? Let's just say it like that. It's a solvent that will clean the line. So if you have sludge and different things built up in your refrigeration lines, POE is going to do a great job of bringing that all back to your compressor. And if there's anything in between that point in your compressor, it's going to plug it up. TXV screens, filter dryers, different stuff like that. So when you are doing conversions, you guys really, really need to follow all manufacturers' instructions on how to properly clean equipment, okay? Now, I personally don't use any R22 alternative refrigerants at the moment, but if my customers ever wanted me to, I would have to. And it's a very good possibility. Well, I know that if I was going to use any alternative refrigerants, absolutely I would be changing the oil over. I'm not going to be using any of these ones that say that you can still use the mineral oil, because that's a whole nother thing. But so I'm going to make sure that I'm going to follow all manufacturers' instructions. If you can, make sure that you cut the line set in different sections and blow it out very well with nitrogen. Personally, I am not a fan of additives, flushes, and different things like that, okay? But there's an argument to be made for both sides. Do as you will, do your research yourself and make that decision whether or not you want to. But just be very careful when you are doing retrofits to refrigerants, okay? Very, very careful. All right, let me see what I'm missing in here. I do sing to myself, couch potato. I definitely sing to myself. I talk to myself. I have conversations while I'm driving down the freeway with myself. Like, I'll rehearse conversations in my head that I'm going to have with someone or something like that. Yep, I do it all the time, so. All right, let's see. How big and dangerous is a VFD explosion? Very dangerous. I mean, I can't really register it on a scale, but depending on the size of the VFD, it's essentially an arc flash can come out of that thing. So, if you're dealing with a 480 volt VFD, depending on the size, it's got some pretty big capacitors in there. And usually when they explode, they're pretty violent. They usually blow the housing apart. The capacitors go flying. It's not a good thing. I've seen it happen quite a few times. So I've seen the results of it, I should say. But all right. Okay, get back to my list here. Showing my callbacks. So that was something new. I really haven't shown callbacks in videos before of my technicians, but I'm not throwing my technician under the bus. Okay, mistakes happen. It's not the end of the world. Okay, we need to learn from those mistakes, but I'm going to try to show that stuff a little bit more because I want to be as open and transparent with everybody and make them realize that, we have those problems at our company too. And even and I have no problem showing my callbacks. If I make a mistake, I'll say it all day long. But in this situation, I'm not naming the technician or anything like that, but it does happen. Okay. Okay. So flush will thin the oil. Okay. So use nitrogen, blow both ways. Yes. Okay. So, but here's the thing about flush. Here's one of the things. Number one, most people don't realize that if you're using a flush, hey Joe, thank you for becoming a channel supporter, HVACR North. That's awesome, bud. So when you're using a flush, okay, something that you don't realize, oftentimes they have an accelerant in there and then they have a chemical solvent in there. And what it's meant to do is it's meant to scrape the lines of the refrigeration line set and push any oils and different things out of the system. Okay. Now, here's the thing, though. If you're going to use a flush, if you follow the manufacturer's installation instructions, you actually have to create a restriction at the opposite end of the line. So you need to pinch down the suction line. If you're dealing with a 7/8 inch suction line, you need to pinch it down to about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then you put flush in the system, and then you pressurize with nitrogen, and you blow all that crap out. By creating a restriction, you're backing up the flush in the line, and you're pushing it through. Now, I don't like flush, and the reason why I don't like it is because I'm worried about that solvent that's in there getting stuck in the system, okay? Because guess what? If there's oil stuck in the system, that solvent can get stuck in the system too. So that's what worries me. But if you're following the installation instructions, a lot of people don't realize that you need to create a restriction on one end of the system, okay, to build up the pressure and blow it through and then blow it the other way too. If you're just leaving the line set completely open and putting flush in there and blowing it out, it's not doing much, okay? The manufacturer's instructions for that flush tell you to create that restriction. So always read the installation instructions for sure. Flush voids warranties? Yeah, it does, because it's not good for the system. So that's what scares me. So, but to be fair, to be completely fair, I have used flush many times in my installations. I've used over my career, And, you know, I can't really tell you one specific time where I ever found a problem from it. But as a principal, I just don't really care to use it anymore just because I'm worried about potential damage in the system. So, you know, I'm not going to sound like a hypocrite and say I've never used it. I have used it, but it's just, you know, I just don't want to use it anymore. It's just my choice. So, did me or any of my techs break a fire sprinkler head before? Cross my fingers. No, we haven't. I don't ever want to break a fire sprinkler head. I have hit my head on fire sprinkler heads so many times and wondered why the fire sprinkler didn't break because my head was bleeding after the fact. But no, I've never broken one. Thank goodness. Okay. I don't want to break one of those because it's going to be a disaster if it ever goes off. So, yeah, it's not good. All right. Why do commercial compressors kind of squeak when they start up? That's a good question, but I don't know of a commercial compressor that I work on that squeaks when it starts up. So there might be something going on with your system there. Rock Nails, thank you so very much for that super chat. How did I decide to go into commercial instead of residential? Well, that's a really easy one. So I was raised in the trade by my father. My father started the company that I work for today in the late 80s. And I worked for him as a child growing up. And then out of high school, I came to work for him full time. So I was born into the trade, essentially. I was raised in the trade, and restaurant refrigeration is what I've always known and what I've always done. So I really didn't. I mean, I could go back to residential if I wanted to, but I love the commercial work. I love fixing the reach-ins. I've worked in restaurants my whole life. I dig it a lot. So when you were talking to customers, something that, you know, I wanted to kind of point out is the backstory. The backstory is so important, guys. You know, interviewing the manager, talking with them. In the past, we would, you know, I would always preach to everybody to go shake someone's hand. Today, we don't get to do that quite as much because of the whole, you know, pandemic and all that stuff. But, you know, still just going in and, you know, talking with the manager, kind of trying to ask them, and sometimes you can get answers from them without them realizing that they're going to give you certain answers. Sometimes you can get answers that they'll incriminate themselves, like, hey, you know, have you noticed that this door every once in a while gets stuck open? It makes a funny noise. And then the manager says, yeah, I come and find it open all the time. Okay, well, if you went in that situation and went to the manager and said, hey, are you guys leaving this door open? Their instant answer is no. But if you ask them in a roundabout way, you know what, I'm noticing that this door hinge is getting stuck. I think we might have a problem here. Have you ever noticed it? Oh, yeah, you know. So asking questions and interviewing the manager is really important because it tells you a lot about your service calls and helps you. So today I went to go work on a walk-in cooler. And I got there and the manager said, yeah, my walk-in cooler's at 60 degrees. And I said, okay, is there any backstory? I mean, have you noticed temperature issues over the last couple of weeks? That kind of stuff. You know, I knew what I needed to know. He said the walk-in was broken. I could have just simply gone on the roof. But in asking him questions, you know, I was trying to find out any other potential problems. Now, in that situation today, there was no other issues. He hadn't had any history, so it really was useless. But still, it's good to have that conversation. It builds a repertoire with the manager too, and, you know, helps them to trust you more. So. All right. Have I ever had a VFD lose its programming? Yes, I have. I've had a VFD on a carrier package unit lose its programming and or have like mysterious faults. After the second time of having to reprogram it, it's time to change the VFD for me. I don't play games with it. I don't work on very expensive VFDs. They're rather small, so I just we'll just change it out once we figure all that stuff. You know, once we see the second time that it's lost memory or something, I'll just change it out. So Sam had asked me in, I believe it was in the Discord chat, Sam had asked me, how long is a HVAC college course, and is HVAC license the same from commercial to residential? Okay. So how long is an HVAC course? Well, typically with a community college, if you're going to do a degree program, it's usually going to be a 2-year program. You're going to go for 2 years. You're going to get a degree in, you know, heating and air conditioning or whatever. And but it'll include math, science, English, all that good stuff. Okay. If you're going to go just for a certificate at a community college, just for an HVAC program, you could probably get it done in a year. I don't know the exact dates. It depends, but that's if you went full time. Personally, the reason why I recommend community colleges is because you can take classes a little bit at a time. So to be honest with you guys, I've not honest, I mean, I've told everybody this. I started going to community college when I was first getting out of high school, and I actually never finished the program. I'm still missing, to get a certificate in HVAC, I'm still missing a welding class and a technical mathematics class. Those are the only 2 classes I need to get a certificate. So, I mean, it's okay, though, because I got everything else that I needed from it. I wasn't looking for a degree. In hindsight, I wish I had a good degree just to have one, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to go back now as a 37-year-old. And, you know, while I'm running a company, it's a little difficult to go do night classes, but, you know, it's something I kind of want to do someday. So I encourage you guys to get a full-on degree if that's ever something you guys are interested in. But community college is my choice. There's private colleges out there too, and those can be great. Just be ready for a hefty price tag. Community college is really easy because you can pay per class. So it might just cost you $400 for a class plus a $200 book, versus paying anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 for a private tuition that you just pay for all up front. I mean, you guys kind of do the math there. All right, let's see if I'm missing any. Have I had freezing up issues with the Trenton evaporators starting from the bottom? Any remedies to the points? No, I have not had any freezing up issues with Trenton evaporators. I wouldn't even say that it would be a Trenton problem. If you're having freezing up issues, number one, the first thing is let's make sure that you have the right nozzle installed in the distributor before the expansion valve. Okay, a lot of people don't realize that you do, and I can't remember if the Trentons come with them or not, but that is a very common issue. If you don't have the right nozzle installed, that can lead to refrigerant flow issues, which theoretically could lead to oil return issues. The next thing is to make sure that you have a properly piped system that has proper oil traps in it. The last thing you want is oil getting stuck in your evaporator, causing weird freezing up issues. Okay, I have one video where I talk about that. So, but I don't have any history with a Trenton one doing something in particular. But I would start with making sure that your equipment is sized right, your compressor's operating to full capacity, the nozzles installed, the expansion valve sized right, and you have suction line P-traps in the system. I imagine that would solve majority of your icing up problems, assuming that it's not getting too cold in the box and a door is not being left open. So thank you very much for that super sticker. I really appreciate that, Tommy. You went 1 year HVAC with no extra courses, HVAC certification course, 1 year, $1,200, and now a tech. Good for you, man. That's awesome. You know, so the second part of that question is the license the same from commercial to residential? Well, licensing changes from every municipality. So California, we don't have any state license to become an HVAC technician. You don't have to have one. The only thing you have to have a state license for is to become a contractor and own your own business. But federally, we do have to have an EPA EPA Section 608 or 609 certification. 608 for residential and commercial, 609 for automotive. Basically, just to be able to purchase and handle refrigerants, you have to have that certification. And essentially, it just says that you're not supposed to vent it into the atmosphere, okay? But we do not have a specific license that you have to have. I kind of wish that we had to have a state license to work on air conditioning and refrigeration, because I feel like it might weed out some of the headaches that we have with unscrupulous technicians. Let's just say that. So, all right, let's see what I'm missing in this super chat. I mean, in the chat, sorry. Yeah, definitely hit the like button, guys. It really, really helps out the stream. Really, please do. So, Ryan WK, sending R22 into a POE compressor. I don't know what you mean by that, but there's absolutely nothing wrong. R22 can work with polyester oil and or mineral oil. There's nothing wrong with it. So I don't know if that was a question or a statement, but R22 in a POE compressor is not going to hurt a single thing. So, all right, let's see what else. As long as it's rated for the correct refrigerant. So Gary had asked me which schooling is better, online or in person, and what are some good schools. He wants to get trained in school so he can start a business. So that's a pretty loaded question, Gary. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit. So online or in-person schools, okay? There's a couple different online schools. There's one called It's About Q and or HVACR EDU. It is an online program that you can get an actual certification in. The problem with online is that you have to be focused and you are self-regulating yourself. You can simply fail the class by not keeping up with the classes, and or well, I guess you can't fail if you just have to pay a fee if you don't get it done in a certain amount of time, and then you just re-up and start the course or continue your course essentially. But HVACR EDU and or It's About Q, you guys can do some research there. It's an online training program. There's nothing wrong with it, okay? It has lots of great information. I've taken some classes there, so it's a pretty cool thing. There's also online resources such as hvacrschool.com. That's my buddy Brian Orr's website. He's got all kinds of things. Now, at this moment, I think he might be working on it, but I don't think he has an actual certification that you get online through his website yet, but I'm sure that'll be coming soon with Brian, knowing him. But me personally, I'm an in-person kind of a thing. I like to go into a trade school. I like to sit down, interact with the teacher, interact with my fellow students, and learn that way. I'm not disciplined enough to handle my own education to make sure that I get to class on time or that I keep up with this or keep up with that when it comes to online stuff. So now, the loaded part of your question there, he said you want to get trained in school so you can start a business. Now, that's a sore subject with me, okay? You may not mean it that way, and don't take offense to this at all. I don't think anybody has any business whatsoever trying to start a business out of trade school, okay? In my opinion, to start a business, you need to work 5 to 10 years in the trade. Bust your knuckles, learn and become an expert in HVAC, then start going to night school, start learning about business, and then jump the ship and start a business. Okay, that's my personal opinion. I'm not an expert, okay, but I get too many people and I see too many people that start businesses fresh out of trade school, which doesn't even make sense because theoretically in California, you're not supposed to be able to do that, but people do. It happens. And I'm not a fan of that. So I think that people need to learn. They need to be an expert in HVAC, and then they can transition into learning how to become a businessman and then merge the two together and start your own HVAC business. So Matthew asks, which meter I like best, the Fieldpiece SC680 and or the Fieldpiece SC480? So that's kind of a hard question. Both meters are great meters. Both meters are the newer line, okay? I actually don't have the 680. I actually have the 660, which is the older one, but it shares a lot of the same features. So the 680 and the 480, the main difference, the biggest one is the size, okay? The 680 is much bigger, and it has a swivel head that turns. I really miss that swivel head. Like I said, I still have the 660, but my go-to meter has been the SC480 because of the size. My favorite feature of both of those meters, the SC680 and the SC480, is the phase rotation. That is my favorite feature, okay? So basically, within 2 leads, you can check line 1, line 2, and line 3 and see if the phases are in sync. So that way, when you start up a 3-phase compressor, you're sure it's going to be going in the right direction. So that's a really important one. I love that feature. And on a side note, pay attention and stay tuned to everybody that's watching this right now, because within the next week, I'm actually going to announce a giveaway for a Fieldpiece SC480 clamp meter that I will be doing. I will make an announcement soon. It will be on my channel. Pay attention. You guys will see how to enter that giveaway. And the really cool thing is the giveaway is going to be open to anywhere. It's not just in the United States. So that will be coming soon. Pay attention. Don't email me or anything like that. You guys will see. I'll announce it on my channel. I'll announce it on my social medias and all that stuff, the details and the rules and all that stuff, and we'll be sending one of those out. All right, let me get back to the chat here and see what I'm missing. On the job with the undersized return that I posted, how easy, difficult would that be to rectify? Oh, man, that undersized... Well, okay, the question is, I don't know which one you're talking about. Is it a newer video, Redo, Felix, with a package unit, or is it a 5-ton split system that has a 12-inch supply duct? I think it's the newer one with the package unit. It would actually be a nightmare to rectify that. You would have to get up into the ceiling space. You would have to open up the bottom of that AC, reframe it, enlarge the return. I think the easiest method to do that, rather than fixing the ductwork, would to be have a custom curb adapter made for that unit. Have the curb adapter, so basically the curb adapter is going to be another 12 inches tall, but it would transition to that weird spot where the return's at, and that would help out a lot. So pretty sure that's the one you're talking about. Super chat. I think that might be a new super chat. Thank you very much for that super chat. HVACR Wiz, that's awesome, bud. Very cool. Do I have a cutaway of a run capacitor? No, I don't. That would be a really interesting thing to do, so maybe I'll work on that. That's a pretty cool one. Essentially, you're just going to see a lot of little thin aluminum metal tape or paper in there wrapped around that with a fluid in there, is essentially what you're going to see. But Have I ever thought of getting into large commercial like chillers and towers and such? I'm really interested in chillers and towers and ammonia and different things like that, but it's just not practical for me to segue my business into that, being that I am not an expert in the matter. So, but yes, I am very interested in that kind of stuff. I've always wanted to work on chillers. I'd love to learn how to work on them. I realized that it probably wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world for me to learn. There'd definitely be some new stuff I have to learn, but yeah, it's just not something I want to get my business into. It's easy. You have to understand that I'm very conservative with our business, myself and my dad, because there's lots of stuff that we want to do, but we're limited by, the skills of our employees. And I don't have employees that work on chillers. That would be a whole new thing. It would be a large expenditure that we would have to fund. It would just be a nightmare. So, all right, let's see what else. What's my go-to method for discharging a capacitor? Adam Neal. Just arcing out the capacitor. I mean, especially if it's one that I'm not going to be worried about. Just taking your screwdriver and shorting across it is going to be my preferred method for that. All right, let's see what else. How do I determine what duct size to use for HVAC? Well, to figure out what duct size you're going to use, what I would have to do to figure out the duct size is you're going to use some tables, and you're going to use load calculation software and or read the manual J, maybe? Is it manual J? I can't remember. Yeah, it's one of the manuals, one of the ASHRAE manuals that'll tell you how to size the ductwork. But essentially, you're going to find the size of CFMs or the size of the blower in your air handler, and you're going to size the ductwork based off of that, so that way you don't overload the blower and you allow for proper air delivery throughout the whole duct system. But yeah, it's just going to be some manuals that you're going to read. You're going to use the friction loss. There's a lot of calculations that go into it too, because you have to figure out the throw that you want the air to come out the register, how far you want it to get across the room, what kind of register you want to use. Do you want it to diffuse the air slowly? Do you want it to, I mean, there's so many different aspects into it. So doing ductwork and airflow is a whole nother ball game, and it's pretty complex. There's a lot of estimation being done out there right now, and there's a lot of improperly sized ductwork. It's pretty crazy. So, all right. Yeah, definitely hit the like button, guys. It really does help. Have I ever been shocked while discharging a capacitor? I can't say that I have. I cannot say that I've ever been shocked by a capacitor. So, what HVAC system do I recommend for small server rooms? I am not an expert when it comes to the server room stuff. So even if it's a small server room, you definitely want to get an AC system that is designed for a server room, because you want to be very concerned about too much dehumidification, which can cause static electricity issues. You want to be concerned with removing humidity. So it's a very fine line of having correctly conditioned air going into that server room. There's a couple main brands such as Liebert and Data Air, but I have no opinion on whether or not one's better than the other. So let's see what else. Okay, so I'm going to get to my list here. The customer seems to fix stuff that should be replaced. Okay, guys, first off, you have to understand something. In my videos, when I'm fixing a region like the roach cooler, I got so many comments saying they'd be better off throwing that box away and starting over. And I agree. I brought to the customer's attention, hey, you might want to consider replacing this box. But when they look at the cost of the unit and they look at the repair quote, they were like, hey, it's going to cost us $6,000 for a new unit. It's going to cost us, a third of that to fix it. So they chose to fix it, even though it's a mess, even though I can't guarantee that they're not going to have roach problems again. Everything I do is what the customer wants to do, guys. I give the customer the options. They make the decisions. Now, I get a lot of questions about sizing air conditioning units and stuff, or replacing air conditioning units. Why didn't I just replace a package unit instead of putting a compressor and a condenser in it? Well, in California, it's insane how much it costs to replace an air conditioner. If you have a 10-ton package unit, easily it's going to cost $15,000, if not more. To change a 10-ton package unit easily. So $4,000 worth of repairs, they're just like, yeah, do it. California has so many requirements. In order to get an air conditioner changed in California, I think I talked about this recently. First off, we have to find out, does the new air conditioner weigh 200 pounds more? Okay, anything more than 200 pounds, then we're going to have to get a structural load calculation on the building. And when I say, does the air conditioner weigh 200 pounds more, What about the curb adapter, guys? The curb adapter is a couple £100 usually if you're changing brands. Even not changing brands, sometimes they can weigh more. A structural engineer is required to come out and make sure that the building can handle the load of the new extra 200 pounds or whatever the requirement is. Then on top of that, we have to bring all the issues up to code, the gas lines, the electrical. Do we have the proper grounding going to the unit? We have to have earthquake straps going to the unit. Then after we're done with that, we have to prove that the unit is working efficiently, which is fine. We have to make sure that it's delivering the proper capacity that the factory says it should. We have to make sure that the airflow is correct. There has to be a third-party company not associated with me that comes in and verifies that I did my job right. Then they have to test the ductwork, make sure that's all good. And they have a very tight criteria of the ductwork for air leakage and different things like that. So by the time the customer gets through all that crap, most of the time they say they don't want to spend the extra whatever it is to change a unit. They'd rather just repair it. So, and the same thing goes for refrigerators too. They just, they just look at the numbers, okay? And if the numbers don't make sense, then they just repair it. So what's the best tool to clean out a condensate drain? Well, I do different kind of work, Joe65. So condensate drains, I'm just a hose person. I don't do residential stuff. So a hose with hot water is my wet dream, basically. If I can get a hose with hot water, I can clean almost anything. If I have hot water on the roof, half the time I don't even need coil cleaner, even if it's a greasy condenser. I just keep spraying that thing. It'll get so hot, the grease will just melt right off, okay? But on the residential side, I wouldn't suggest using CO2. Because especially on residential where you have PVC drain lines, if you have a really bad clog or plugged up drain line and you try to blow it with CO2, you can actually blow the drain lines apart in the attic, which could be a headache. So be careful, very careful about that. For me, I deal with mostly copper drain lines. I still don't use CO2. I use water essentially, and I'll blow out the drain lines with water. You guys see it in my videos all the time. So. All right. What's my opinion on gauging up to every unit I work on? There's no need to gauge up to everything, but we as technicians need to know when we need to do it and when we don't need to do it. So, basically, I'm going to make a judgment call when I'm there. I'm using my senses. I'm listening, I'm looking, I'm feeling, I'm just observing. And the sounds that I hear from the metering device, the heat that I feel coming off the condenser, different things like that are going to help me to understand if I need to put my service gauges on there, okay? So no, I do not gauge up on everything, only in certain situations. When I deal with walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers, I gauge up quite often. Especially remote ice machines that have large refrigerant charges, I gauge up quite often. But when we get into the small reach-in coolers and prep tables and self-contained ice machines, they're critically charged, and an ounce can mean the end of the world for the particular piece of equipment. So you got to be very careful about gauging up in those situations. So. Sorry about that. What kind of jobs do I refuse to work on? The jobs that I refuse to work on, for the most part, is new construction. I don't do new construction. I hate working with general contractors. I'm not a fan of working with other trades when it comes to, sorry, I keep hitting the damn mic. When it comes to doing equipment change outs and things like that, I don't like having to wait for electricians. I don't like having to wait for plumbers and different things and other trades to run pipes and different stuff. It's just a headache. So I prefer not to do any new construction. I don't even care for retrofit construction. I don't mind changing walk-in cooler and freezer evaporators and package units on the roof, but I typically don't like to do stuff that involves me having to use other trades and coordinating with them, because it just becomes a pain in the butt, especially when generals are involved. Which do I think is better, an RTU unit or a split system? I prefer to work on an RTU unit all day long, or a package unit. I prefer that all day long. Everything's consolidated into one unit, and it's just much easier, in my opinion, to work on it. So, yes, it is apple juice. It is Black Butte Porter apple juice. So, it's got a nice coffee taste to it. Does a body good? How long is a reasonable for an annual maintenance for an HVAC? It really depends on what you're working on. So I had a service tech do a really quick preventative maintenance on a restaurant that had 7 package units on the roof, and he was there for 6 hours. But that was a really quick maintenance. He literally just jumped in there, hosed off the coils. He didn't split them. He hosed off the evaporator, blew out the drain line, tightened the belts, changed the air filters, and checked a temperature differential across the return and supply. He did not gauge up on anything. He did not check voltages or anything like that. So every single installation is different. If you're dealing with a residential house, depending on the size, I mean, and it really depends on how in depth you're going to go. Are you testing CFMs? Are you testing, I mean, you know, it really, that is such a loaded question. There's so many variables to that. So, all right. Let's see what else. How many? Okay. Yeah, my bad if I say RTU unit. I know. It's just like saying VFD drive. It's just, yeah, I'm silly when I say that kind of stuff. So I do that just for you, knock it off. So just for you, I'm going to say RTU unit all day long. So, all right. See you later next time, or see you next time, everything HVAC. Sarah, thank you so very much for coming in here. Okay. On HVAC overtime, I said I was never drinking again. That was a fast never. Yeah, I think I said never for the rest of my life, or maybe for a couple weeks, or maybe for a week, maybe for 5 days. So that's what it was, 5 days. All right. Have I ever found parts of a system missing or stolen on a call? Yes, but I wouldn't say stolen. Like in certain situations, things that can happen is, I've had this happen to me before, where I was at a restaurant and I went to the manager and I said, hey, your unit needs a new blower assembly rebuild. Okay. And they say, yeah, okay. And what I do is I'll pull the blower assembly out and take it with me. And then the manager calls me back and says, never mind, we don't want to do it. And I go, well, now I have a blower assembly and I'm an hour and a half away from your shop. What do I do? Do you guys want to come get it? Or because if you're not going to pay me to come back, I'm not bringing it back. You know, that kind of stuff. So that's a weird instance. I've come across a unit before that didn't have a blower assembly in it, you know, and it's like, I can only think that, you know, someone told them to do it and then they changed their mind, because where else does a squirrel cage and a blower motor and all that stuff disappear to? But yes, I have come across units that are missing parts and different things like that. Sometimes, depending on the customer and the company that was there before, people will scavenge parts off of other units that the customer says that they're not going to fix. And so they have another unit break on a Friday night. So a tech will run over and grab a contactor out of that, you know, and then I'm not a fan of doing that, because it leads to later on down the line, there's no contactor in this unit, you know, it just becomes a headache. So why would a house or a building go into a negative pressure? So this was a question that was asked to me. Someone said that their house is on a negative, it has a negative air pressure. Okay. So if you have a building or a house that has negative air pressure, what that means is that you're basically pulling air into the house from every crack and every corner of the house, and or if it's a really tight house, whenever you open the door, air is rushing in the door into the house, okay? Typically, what that means is that you have some sort of an exhaust pulling the air out of the building and you're not putting the air back in. Now, in most residential houses that don't have any makeup air, that can typically be because you have leaky supply air ducts, okay? And so what you can do is the return air will suck in the return air grill, and the air will blow through the air handler, go into the ductwork system, okay? And if it can get outside of the envelope, okay, outside of the drywall and everything else, and it gets lost in the attic, then the house can go into a negative air pressure depending on how leaky the system is, okay? In a restaurant, if you have an exhaust fan running without a makeup air unit, then you can have a negative air pressure, okay? So there's many reasons why your building can go negative, but it usually has to do with airflow, and it has to do with you're pulling air out of the building and you're not putting it back in, okay? Now, the newer houses, they do have makeup air and or fresh air coming in to satisfy fresh air requirements, so that's a whole nother thing. If the customer went and shut down the fresh air vents, or they're not running the supply fan or different things like that, that can cause some negative air pressure issues, all kinds of weird stuff. So let's see what else we got in here. All right. Why? Okay, I already answered that one. Have I ever had to use the wrong cleaner on a microchannel condenser? And yes, I have. That's a really good point. So there has been several times that I have had to use full strength condenser coil cleaner on microchannel coils, okay? Because customers oftentimes don't do preventative maintenances. Their air conditioners are located right next to exhaust fans. They may go months without it, and the grease buildup on the exhaust fan is just crazy, and we got to get it cleaned. and we don't like doing it. In the past, we would use condenser coil cleaner that wasn't meant for microchannel, put it on there real quick and rinse it off. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Nowadays, I think in my most recent video, I use some of the Hvacr condenser coil cleaner, which happens to be microchannel safe. But if you listened at the end of the video, I said that I did 4 coats of that, okay? Because I didn't want to use non-aluminum safe condenser coil cleaner. I had to do 4 different coats where I let the cleaner sit, break down the grease, rinsed it off, repeated, okay? But yes, I am not perfect, and yes, I have used standard regular strength condenser coil cleaner on microchannel condensers several times, but I make sure I clean the heck out of it. It's not something I want to do, but sometimes you got to do it. So same thing goes with coated coils. I have customers that have corrosion coatings on them, so that way they don't rot away from the salt in the air. And you're not supposed to clean those with any kind of cleaners, okay? And the problem is that if you got a greasy condenser, what are you supposed to do? You got to clean it. So you'll clean the coating right off the coil. But I mean, you know, you can only do so much when the customer doesn't do routine preventative maintenances. So Terry, thank you so very much for that super chat. You were so hot out, you saw a thief putting copper back in a unit. Yeah, that's funny. We get, in California, when the copper prices were high, man, we were getting theft as far as condenser coils left and right, man. I'd come up on the roof and drain lines. Tweakers would go up there without any tools, and they just kick the drain lines until they broke, and they'd rip them off. I've seen tweakers jump on the roof of a restaurant that looked really hard to get onto and steal refrigeration line sets. So they'd get there, and their fish case wouldn't work at all. You know, because there's no refrigerant left in because there's no refrigeration lines. I remember laughing about that one when I went on the roof. I'm all, there's no line set. It got jacked. You know, it's kind of crazy. Why do I always install smart evaporators but not install smart condensing units? Okay, good catch on that one. So if you guys don't know, when I do my installations on walk-in coolers, the customer that my customers typically purchase their own equipment because I deal with chain restaurants. So oftentimes lately they've been buying Heatcraft smart evaporators, whether it be the QRC system and or the intelligence system. Okay, but it is not a full beacon system. The beacon system from Heatcraft has low voltage controls on the roof that communicate downstairs. They usually do outdoor air temperature. They have communication with the pressure controls, with the contactor coils, all the way down to a smart controller downstairs. So my customer just chooses to do the smart evaporators, which come with smart defrost, electronic expansion valves with dumb condensing units on the roof that essentially just act as a slave and turn on and off based off of what the evaporator says to do. But that's just my customer's choice. I'm not selling them the equipment. I would love to sell them a full communicating system, but they just don't want that half the time. So let's see what else. What can a heat wave do to a walk-in condensing unit? It really just makes it run harder. Essentially, when it gets really hot outside, the run times increase. It takes a lot longer to cool down the refrigerant. It takes a lot longer to dissipate all the heat, and so the system just runs longer and harder when we get big heat waves. So this week we're having a heat wave. It's going to be triple digits, probably 105, 106, I'm guessing. So we're going to have longer run times, but for the most part, our equipment is sized for that, so it's not a problem. All right, let's see what else. I know I'm missing stuff. So do I agree with hiring a guy without any field knowledge and working with heavy commercial equipment seems hard to do? You're having trouble going up to 200-ton chiller without any experience. Yeah, that's a scary thing to jump onto a company and not be trained properly. I wouldn't do that at all. But yeah, I'm not a fan of doing that. Now, if someone's going to train you, take you under their wing, you're going to shadow with them, and they're going to teach you, then that's a great opportunity. But if they're going to throw you to the wolves, that sounds pretty sketch. How do I eat when I'm on the road so frequently? Have you have an innate knowledge of how to gross back of house? Oh, okay, got you. So I'm very thankful that my wife makes my lunch for me every day. I'm super thankful. That's awesome. She gets up with me every morning. She makes me a cup of coffee, and she makes me lunch. Needless to say, I'm capable of making my own lunch, but my wife does it for me, and I'm lazy. And this whole time that she's been gone on vacation, I haven't had anybody to make my lunch, and I haven't been making it, so I've been eating fast food, which isn't good for me, but it was just kind of a vacation too, to be able to eat some fast food again. But so yeah, I usually have a lunch packed with me, and I just kind of eat on the go, and in between jobs and different things like that. Sometimes I have a backpack that's all insulated. It's a lunchbox that I got at Costco, and I'll take that on the roof with me sometimes and sit down in the shade and just eat my lunch real quick while I'm working. So but it's very important. I'm not in the greatest of shape in the world. I definitely have some fat in some places that I don't need to have it. I'm overweight. I think I'm technically obese according to the crazy skewed standards that the medical boards have. Um, but, you know, eating healthy is a really important thing because let alone in the beginning of the stream, I talked about mental disorder and different things like that. Eating healthy is another thing that's a struggle. It's just one of those things where it's so easy for us to justify grabbing a hamburger real quick every day. You eat hamburgers every day, that's not going to be good for you. Even though they taste great, you know, we need to eat more salads, more chicken sandwiches, you know, non-breaded, and, you know, just try to eat healthier. So, and be active too. I remember one time I went to the doctor and my doctor said, how often do you exercise? And I said, well, I exercise every day I go to work, dude. I climb ladders. I carry a 70-pound tool bag. I do all this different stuff. And he goes, no. That's not exercising. He goes, that's your normal life. He goes, exercising is what you do outside of your normal day. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Really? I have to go home and work out? I'm exhausted, but that's just how it works. What do I keep the temperature set at my house? It is currently set at 74 degrees right now. Let's see. So we don't really know what humidity is here in California. So let me see. I've got a Honeywell something or other. So I've got an app on my phone. I think it's like a 9,000. So it is 41% humidity in my house and 74 degrees right now. It's very comfortable. I also have a cooling fan running in my office to drown out the noise of the rest of the house so you guys don't hear the cats. But it helps to circulate some air in this office because it gets hot with all this computer gear. But 74 degrees is my magic number. But my wife loses her mind because she freezes at 74. She likes it 76, 78. I'm not a fan of 78. I'll sometimes compromise for 76. So typically 74 to 76. Now in the wintertime, I usually set the heating to about 69. Keep my house about 69 degrees in the winter. So what do I think about an indoor condensing unit with a doghouse to make it an outdoor unit? Do I lose capacity? No, you don't lose capacity. There's nothing wrong with that. I used to do that all the time. It's not going to be in California. You can't technically do that anymore because they want your units to have like similar to an AHRI rating that a residential unit's going to have. You know, they want you to have these fancy ratings and have matched equipment on commercial now, but I've done many times where you take an indoor condensing unit, put a doghouse on it, put it outside. The only tip I can give you is if you're going to do that, usually you want to upsize the receiver a couple sizes to make sure that the receiver capacity is big enough. Indoor equipment, indoor condensing units, they typically don't have receivers that are oversized because they're meant to be inside, so they typically won't have extremely long line set runs. So I'd highly suggest upping that receiver size. That way you have enough storage capacity for the whole refrigerant charge to pump the system down. You live in a walk-in freezer? Yep. What are the advantages of microchannel condensers? So microchannel condensers, it's all about efficiency. You get much more efficiency, a lot less weight, a lot less... it's efficiency and weight, essentially. That's the main thing on microchannel. The downside is refrigerant leaks. It's susceptible to corrosion, different things like that. But yeah, microchannels are fine so long as they don't leak, and so long as you can clean them with proper cleaners. You know, they don't do good in greasy environments at all. All right, I'm going to get to my list of things here. Multiple superheats. This is an interesting one. Great question, too. Someone had, I don't have your name, forgive me. You guys, when you guys leave me questions, whether it be through email, whether it be through the Discord server or anything like that, do me a favor and put your name down, because I really don't like mentioning the silly screen names that we all have, because sometimes we have funny screen names on Discord. So I'd rather say, hey, Bob from, you know, whatever asked this question. So multiple superheats with analog gauges. This is a great question and a great observation. So the gentleman wrote me and he said, hey, you know what, when he's measuring superheat, where he has 2 evaporators on a walk-in cooler, what he notices is that, and he's using analog gauges, okay, he's noticing that the liquid line changes temperature so fast, and it's hard to find the saturation temperature on the line set when the liquid line keeps changing, because when you have multiple evaporators, different things are happening in the system. And this is a perfect use case for digital gauges. Digital gauges react instantly, okay? So you're able to see an expansion valve hunting very easily versus having to do a mathematical calculation to calculate what superheat is, then look back up and it's already changed, and it's already changed, and it's already changed, okay? If you have digital gauges, that changes instantaneous. So you're just looking at the gauge and you're watching the superheat go from 6 degrees to 10 degrees to 6 degrees to 10 degrees. That doesn't sound too bad. It's kind of ranging. For a thermostatically controlled valve, if it went from 6 to 10 degrees slowly, I'd be okay with that as the valve opens and closes. If it's an electronic valve, that differential needs to be a lot tighter. You typically are going to see like a 2-degree differential. But yeah. What is the benefit of a piston in a hermetically sealed compressor versus a scroll compressor? Okay, scroll compressors are much more efficient. They're much quieter, and the weight is usually a lot less than a piston-driven compressor. But you have to be careful, okay? Converting from a piston-driven compressor to a scroll compressor, you can run into some problems, okay? You got to be very careful about that. But essentially, it's about efficiency, and it's about the weight and how quiet they are. Scroll compressors, in most cases, the newer scroll compressors can handle liquid better. Scroll compressors have some downsides, though, too, in refrigeration. They don't like to be pumped down. That's a tricky one, you know, especially when we have pump-down systems. Those are kind of tricky. All right. What's the most annoying thing that I have seen other companies do? That's an interesting one. So the most annoying thing for me might be different than what it is for you. But for me is leaving trash on the roof. That's number one. I can't handle when I go up onto a roof and there's 7 compressors up there. That drives me nuts, because that means that that technician is so lazy, that was before me, that he's not willing to drag a compressor down on the roof. Guys, we're getting paid hourly for the most part. Why not take the compressor down? You charge the customer for that, okay? Maybe in that situation they weren't charging hourly and that technician, you know, wasn't getting paid hourly. I don't know, but still, there's no reason to leave trash on the roof. That's the one thing that drives me through the roof, man. How long have I been using Hvacr condenser coil cleaners? Probably about 3 years now. 2-3 years now. It started with the Viper HD cleaner. I've been using Viper products for a long time when it comes to like Nylog and different things like that. I guess that's a Refrigeration Technologies, but it's all the same company. But I've been going hot and heavy with their coil cleaners strong for the last year, and I kind of pretty much made a 100% transition to only Viper cleaners in the last probably 8 months. So consistently, I'm only using Viper cleaners. Every once in a blue moon, if I'm completely out of it and they don't have them in a local supply house, I'll pick up another brand cleaner. But for the most part, I'm straight Viper Refrigeration Technologies condenser coil cleaners all the way across the board. So let me see. This is a great question right here. Someone had asked me for a few tips for a new business owner, a small business owner. Okay. So he specifically asked me for 3 tips, but I'll give you a few. Okay. So being a business owner is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I have a partner, someone that helps me, but it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's a nightmare. Okay. There's so many variables when it comes to being a business owner. So for instance, you got a really stressful day. I'm out working in the field and I get a phone call that someone got into a vehicle accident. Okay. Okay, great. Accidents happen. Life moves on, right? It's okay. You know, people make mistakes. We get into accidents. But what you don't realize, when an accident happens as a business owner, I have to coordinate a tow truck. I have to coordinate lawyers. I have to coordinate insurance companies. I have to send someone to pick up that technician. I have to get that technician home. I have to get that technician to the auto dealership to clean out their van. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, all while I'm trying to still fix something, okay? So, 3 tips for a new business owner. Number one, the number one tip, these are my opinions, guys, okay? My opinions. I'm not an expert. There's plenty of people smarter than I, okay? But number one tip for a new business owner, don't leverage your life to open a new business. Don't finance everything, okay? Cash-based business, all right? Or minimal financing if you need to, all right? Be very cautious. People that finance their lives away, they put themselves and their families at risk, because when crap happens, pandemic happens, and yeah, there might be some bailout plans and some things from the government to help you survive, but sometimes some of those things took forever for people to get. That can be very scary, okay? So don't leverage your life away. That's my number one tip, okay? Let me see. I have a couple of them written down. Where's it at? Why? I lost. Oh, there we go, right there. Don't leverage your life, okay? Be very, very careful for new business owners. It's really easy to go on Facebook and Instagram and see these companies that seem like they can do no wrong talking about how amazing their businesses are doing. Okay. There's these guys on Instagram, Facebook, social media, and everything. And they're going crazy saying, yeah, my business is succeeding. I'm buying trucks every week. I'm opening a new branch. We're killing it. We're making sales. We're doing all this stuff. Okay. And then at the end of that post, they say, hey, and guess what? I'll come and I'll teach you how to do it for $600. Okay. So now they're a new business owner and they're a business coach. Don't listen to those guys, people. Okay. I'm not saying that all business coaches are bad, but don't listen to a guy on social media that can edit his posts and make it seem like he's living the most fabulous lifestyle in the world while he's trying to sell you how to live that lifestyle too. I've seen it too many times recently where you see these people and they're on social media and they're talking about, I'll teach you how to be a $1 million sales technician. Okay. All this different stuff. I'm not saying that salesmen are bad or anything like that, but just as a new business owner, don't listen to these guys that make it seem like they can do no wrong. Okay. Do some good reading, read some good books, go to some small business classes, enroll in your community college. Okay. And be very cautious about people's advice to start a business underwater and to finance everything. Be very careful about that. Okay. The third business tip that I'm going to give you is, before you become a businessman, you need to understand the trade. Okay. You need to really, really understand the trade. If you don't understand refrigeration and air conditioning, it's going to be really hard to run a business. Okay. You need to be able to fix everything without any help whatsoever. Okay. So be very cautious about that. Make sure that you're proficient in HVACR before you try to start a business, and do a lot of research before. A lot of people out there that have businesses have no business starting a business. Adam, thank you very much for that super chat, man. Oh, you'll teach me how to do it for $50. Go HVAC overtime. There you go. All right. So since Adam gave a shameful plug right there. Okay. Don't forget to subscribe to the HVACR overtime channel. I do a show with the overtime channel on Friday nights. I'm on there as long as I can get off work. And it's a great show. So feel free to plug it in the chat right now, Adam, or one of the other mods. Plug the overtime show. Myself, A-Team Adam, Curious HVAC Guy, HVACR North, Joe from Canada. We all do a show together, and it's just more, it's not as structured and as clean and proper as this. It's more of a hangout. We're drinking. Half the time I'm drinking way too much. Actually, the overtime show was part of the reason why I stopped drinking for a week, because I had too many beers on the overtime show, and then my friends were over at my house, and I had 4 more beers after I got done with the 3 on the overtime show, and then I woke up feeling like crap for the next 2 days. So where do I get the brushes that I use for cleaning ice machines? So I get them from Granger's. They're called bottle brushes. They're usually 36 inches long. They're about 1 inch in diameter as far as the brush diameter, and we shove them up the tubes and clean everything out. So just Google search bottle brushes on Granger's website, and you guys will find them. So where is a good place? This is a great question too. Where is a good place to learn about manufacturers' equipment such as Trane, Lennox, Carrier, different things like that? The manufacturers' websites, guys. So Trane has a really cool website called Comfort Site. They have an app called Trane 360. Okay, look up Trane 360 on your phone, download the app, call your Trane dealer, get a username and password, and you can download all the PDFs while you're at work for any of the Trane equipment. Okay, same thing with Linux. You go to DaveNet or go to Linux Pros on your phone, download all the PDFs and all that different stuff. It'll really, really help you. Great place to learn everything. Carrier has a very similar app where you can download user manuals and different stuff like that. Trane and Linux and Carrier, they all kind of are a pain in the butt in the way that if you really want to get factory training, they want you to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get that factory training. So do your best reading the PDFs, and just, you know, sometimes it sucks having to learn all the Trane stuff and the Linux stuff and all that different. It's a pain in the butt. All right. Have I ever worked on an IntelliPack unit? You were confused when you came up to one the other day. Yeah. I was just as confused as you were when I opened up an IntelliPack unit. Luckily, I don't have any more of them at this time. Some people can work on them a lot because they're super comfortable. I'm not very comfortable, but I used to have an IntelliPack unit, and it was a nightmare for me to have to learn the control strategy, and it was a pain in the butt. So yes, I have had to work on them. Terry, thank you very much. Very, very much. Thank you very much for that super chat. All right, let's see what else. Oh, that's funny. My daughter's in here right now. Hi, Katie. All right. All right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Viper Venom Packs. I wanted to talk about refrigeration technologies cleaners. Okay. So something that you have to understand, the Viper condenser coil cleaner in the yellow Venom pack, it is not the strongest cleaner in the world, and it sometimes will take extra coats. Okay. The Viper cleaners, the cool thing about them is when you get the Venom packs, there's and I want people to understand this because I talk about the Viper cleaners all the time, and then sometimes people will order them and then they email me, this stuff doesn't work. You have to mix it properly using the Viper condenser coil gun. Okay, it is different than the new Calgon gun. You have to make sure you get the Viper one and or mix it to the proper mixing dilution ratio and all that stuff. But the key to the Viper condenser coil cleaner in the yellow pack is to let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes before you rinse it off. Very important. Let it break down the stuff, then give it a rinse and do a second coating after that. Yes, you can buy another manufacturer's cleaner and you can put it on there, some blue crap, and it will eat the condenser away in 5 minutes, okay? Viper also makes a blue cleaner that is not as strong as the other manufacturer's stuff, but they purposely do that because these cleaners are supposed to be safe, okay? They're not supposed to eat the metal away and all that different stuff. So the reason why I use the Viper stuff is because it's safe, it's convenient, and they're a small family business. I really like their business model. I love how they do things. I've gone down to the factory several times myself. It's awesome. They're awesome people. So I really like supporting Refrigeration Technologies products. So, all right, let's see what else we got in here. Let's see. Watch what I say. My wife might watch. Yeah, my wife is watching too. I'm sure she is with my daughter. Yeah. All right, let's see what else. Let's see. Did an assessment in California and you saw an EPR on a walk-in freezer. Well, you probably saw, well, I mean, I guess you can see an EPR. It depends. I mean, if it was multiplexed with other things, I can see that. It really depends on what they were trying to do. Sometimes engineers get involved and they do all kinds of weird stuff with these systems. I see CPR valves all the time on walk-in freezers. I don't see EPRs as much. I've seen them maybe once or twice, but it's not very common that I see them. On bigger, more fancy systems, definitely. So, John, thank you very much for that super chat. I really appreciate it. Could I recommend any specific training or trade school? What would it be? So, first off, as far as online training, I got to give my buddy Brian a plug, hvacrschool.com, okay? Or HVACR or HVAC school on YouTube or Facebook or any of those things, okay? Really cool dude, lots of great training resources. I mentioned earlier, It's About Q and or HVACR EDU is another great online training resource. Now, Brian's training is free. HVACR to EDU or It's About Q is paid for training. As far as any other online schools, no. You're going to get majority of everything you're going to need from Brian for free, hvacrschool.com. That's the best place, best resource. I've even written a few articles for Brian. Just Google search my name, Chris Stevens, on his search bar on his website. And I think I wrote a couple smoke detector ones, some propane ones, different things like that. So let's see. What is my favorite gauges to use, the wireless ones or the manifold gauges? I can't answer whether or not I like the wireless ones or the manifold better. I really like the Fieldpiece products, and there's a good use. Like today I was using the manifold set because I was working on a walk-in cooler and I didn't need to see anything downstairs. But, you know, even with the manifold set, you can still do wireless temperature clamps and air temperature clamps and different things like that downstairs. So I really like both. I have the JobLink probes and the S-Man manifold, and I interchangeably use them multiple times. So let's see what else. Yeah, so I mentioned, and I don't know if I said this. No, I didn't say this yet. So this week, I'm getting a merch restock, guys. So hvacrvideos.com, okay? I think I get my delivery on Wednesday, so hopefully by Friday, I'll have the website quantities updated. I have 50 large hats and 50 small medium hats. They're all black. They'll be on sale again. Nobody has purchased any of them yet because the website won't let you purchase them until I put them back in stock. I got a giant box of, or a giant pile of boxes right here so we can ship everything out. We're getting all the sizes in, and this time, guys, on like the 4XLs, the 3XLs, the 2XLs, I have like 30 and 40 of each. So we're going to have plenty of stock on the sizes. So hopefully by Friday, we'll have them folded and ready to get shipping out. Again, hvacrvideos.com, guys, and that's where the merch is going to be at. So just keep checking on the website and you'll see the quantities updated. I'll probably mention something on social media when I update the quantities too. So hopefully as long as I have to, what takes me the longest with the merch, it might be this weekend too. What takes me the longest is I physically go through and look at every shirt and then I fold them, because the last time I placed an order, I think I had, and I mean, it's expected when you order a ridiculous amount of shirts, sometimes there's errors. So I found a bunch of errors and I didn't want to ship those out to people and I didn't want you guys to find them. So I have to go through and physically inspect every shirt. So I have a couple hundred shirts coming and about 100 hats coming. So they'll be here hopefully this Friday, if not this weekend. We'll have them all ready and up for sale on the website again. So let me see what else we got in here. What am I missing? What was my weirdest call I've ever been on? Well, the first time I used to work for a hospital, and the first time I got a service call to the morgue was an interesting one, but then I got used to it and there was many calls in the morgue. I have a funny story I've told before where I had an apprentice working with me, a new guy that I was training, and we went to the hospital and we had a morgue. They called it a 4-passenger, so it had 4 spaces for bodies in the cooler. And so they would always call it a 4-passenger cooler down. So we'd go out there and they had 3 bad fan motors out of 5. Okay, I think it was something like that. And I just talked them into letting me change all 5 because they didn't want it to break down again. So I said, okay, well, we ended up putting the wrong motors in. So we left at like 6 o'clock at night, and they called me at like 2 in the morning and they said, there's a god awful burning smell coming out of that thing. And what had happened was we put 115 volt motors in a 230 volt cooler. So it burnt up all the motors, and the smell inside that box, if you wasn't already, for the most part, morgues and hospitals, they don't smell. I mean, everybody thinks they smell nasty, but they really don't. It's not a mortuary. They're not using formaldehyde and stuff like that. They're usually just storing bodies for transport. But this thing had a smell after that, a burning smell. I'm not kidding with you, for years. That cooler smelled like burnt motors for years. It was nuts. And the hospital, they used to make fun of me because it was the funniest thing. It was my mistake. I covered it all under warranty, but I handed the apprentice the motors, the wrong motors, and he installed them. He did the job right. It wasn't his fault. We all learned a lesson that day. So, all right, let's see what else. Let's see. Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm just reading the chat real quick right now. Oh, so there was one time too, that is funny. There was one time I was working at a hospital too, and they sent me up to the maternity ward. And they said, go to this room. They've got a refrigerator down. So I go to that room, and it's the lactation room. So it's where the moms come in to breastfeed, and they pump and store the milk and whatever. So I go to the lactation room, and the door is shut. So I knock on the door, and nobody answers. And so I knock again, and nobody answers. And so I creep the door open, and I knock again. And I said, excuse me, engineering, here to work on a refrigerator. And a lady pops her head out, not being discreet. I didn't see nothing, but she pops her head out of a curtain, and she goes, oh, come on in. And I go, oh, no, ma'am. She was in there breastfeeding. I said, no, ma'am. I'll wait till you're done. She goes, honey, she looked at me. She goes, if you haven't seen a titty your whole life at this age, she goes, there's something wrong with you. Come on in here. And I said, no, ma'am. My face turned red, flush. She said it just like that too. My face turned red, and I was so embarrassed. I was like, what? So, all right. Tell me about my favorite chapter out of refrigeration for air conditioning technicians. Oh, OMFJMH. Okay, great. So what's my favorite chapter on refrigeration, commercial refrigeration for air conditioning technicians by Ductwork? My favorite chapter, and the one that opened my eyes when I went through the class, I actually went through a class with Ductwork. My favorite thing was when he broke down starting components. That was an eye-opening one for me when he broke down starting components, because starting components were always voodoo to me when it comes to compressors, and he does a great job of breaking them down and just making it make sense in your head, and that was a really important part for me. So let's see, how often do I find backwards fan blades on space saver coils? Too often to mention. I would say 2-3 times a year I find backward fan blades, usually after other companies, sometimes my own techs, but that drives me nuts on space saver coils. I just, seriously, guys. Did I stop working for the hospital? Yes, I did stop working for the hospital about 6 years ago. So, Dave, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That is awesome. I really appreciate both of those. Really cool, bud. Thank you. One time when I was working at the hospital too, I had all kinds of fun stories. So one time I was working in the morgue, and one of my rules was that I wouldn't work on the morgue cooler if there was anybody in it, the passengers, right? Dead bodies. So, I had them, I go in there and there's 2 passengers in the morgue cooler, and I go to the person and I said, look, man, we got to move these bodies because I can't work on this. And he goes, well, I'll get an orderly down there. So the orderly comes down, and they usually have to come down in a team of 2. And he goes, yeah, I'm waiting for the other person. They're on break. They're not going to be back for 45 minutes. So I got to help him. They got this really cool crane mechanism. And we didn't have to, you just grab the body. Well, you don't even grab the body bag. You slide the metal tray out of the cooler, and this just crane looking hoist thing grabs it with chains and lifts it up. So we got to do that. That was pretty cool. I used to like to do that kind of weird stuff. Yeah, I think that's all the fun stories I had at the hospital. There's I'm sure there's other ones too. Have I ever found a vandalized unit? Yeah, I found units that are missing condensers, that people have chopped up the condenser. They've tagged with their fingers in the condenser and, wrote little notes and whatever, on the fins. Seen all kinds of stuff. Is there a reverse book, air conditioning for refrigeration technicians? I don't know. Maybe you should write it, bud. How often do I find dirty as hell space made? Yes, because people don't know how space saver coil, or space miser coils is what they call them, right? A space miser coil is an evaporator coil that is mounted on the ceiling. We call them ceiling mounted coils, and it sucks air in through the fan blades and blows it out. Okay. So when a technician walks in and looks at the evaporator coil, he's seeing the outlet of the coil and he goes, oh yeah, it's clean. No problem. And they don't ever get cleaned because it's dirty on the inside. People don't realize that. You got to be smarter than the average bear and just stick your hand up there and say, oh, the air's sucking in. Maybe it's going to be dirty on the inside. Drive me nuts. When am I going to post a new video? I post videos 2 times a week, Sunday morning and Thursday afternoon. So I'll have a new video this Thursday. Every week, Sunday and Thursday. Live streams on Mondays. All right, so that's that one. All right, guys. Give me some questions to answer. Have I ever worked on space pack units? No, I can't say I have worked on space pack units. So, hey, thanks for subscribing to Overtime. That's awesome. Minimalist tool bag versus one trip hero bag. I'm halfway in between. I carry a Vito backpack. It has everything I need for a majority of my service calls, but I mean, it's minimal at the same time too. So if you go to my YouTube channel and look up tool bag, I think you'll see my Vito backpack rundown. Even though that tool bag video was made 2 years ago, I carry the same stuff in my Vito bag. So I probably need to do some updated tool bags and van tours and different things like that. But yeah, I'm somewhat of a loaded down bag. I got jumper wires in it. I got all the wrenches I need, leak detector, soap bubbles, all that stuff. I carry it all in my bag. So let's see what else. Where do I recycle old refrigerant? So my supply house basically swaps out the tanks for me. I think they charge me like $60 or $70. I bring in a full tank. They exchange it. They give me an empty tank that's vacuumed down. And yeah, that's what I do. They take care of it. They send it back to the refrigeration manufacturer. The refrigeration manufacturer usually takes the refrigerant, breaks it down, cleans it up, and then resells it. Yes, with me and my company, drive time is the same as regular time. So your hourly rate for regular time is your hourly rate for drive time. Same thing with how we charge the customers too. Thank you so very much for that super chat, John. So you currently work as a traveling construction superintendent. You appreciate the professionalism. Oh, thank you very much, man. That's awesome. What advice do I have for HVAC technicians starting out? You know what? This is a great trade. There's a lot of money to be made, especially for apprentices. You need to learn how to keep your mouth shut, keep your eyes open, and ask questions when it's the right time to ask questions. If you're a new guy that's beyond apprentice level, still be a sponge. Ask questions of everybody that you're working with. It doesn't matter what level you're on. If you're ever on a roof and you see a piece of equipment you've never seen before, go take the model and serial number down, take some pictures of it, go home and do some research on it, okay? Step back and look at the big picture as usual. That's one of the most important things I can give to any technician out there. So hopefully that answers your question for you. Let's see what else. Have I ever worked on a mini split? Yeah, several times I've worked on mini splits. Nothing too crazy. Do any of my sponsors do giveaways? Rito Felix, that is actually well, kind of sponsor. They're not a sponsor per se, but Field Piece is actually the one that's going to be doing the giveaway of the SC480. I'm just going to be hosting it and announcing the winner essentially, but Field Piece is going to ship it. So yeah, occasionally sponsors will do giveaways. Right now, I only have 2 sponsors that are official sponsors, and that is Refrigeration Technologies and Sporlin. But I'm not a fan of doing a lot of giveaways, so I might do more of them, but I just have to be careful because I don't want to cloud my channel and change the dynamic of things. So, Dave, again, thank you so very much for that super chat. Can I use 407C on a new 410A compressor? You can do anything you want. Do I recommend it? No, whatsoever. You need to put 410 in a 410 compressor. Put R22 in an R22 compressor. If you're going to do a conversion from R22 to one of these other refrigerants, make sure you follow the installation instructions and change the oil. So, do I do any equipment Frankensteining besides the R290 video? Not a whole lot. I've been thinking about doing it a little bit more. I'd love to get my hands on some package units that I could, I'd love to be able to wire in a package unit or something like that and be able to experiment with that a little bit. So, but no, the only stuff I've done is the R290 video. Do I know about a condenser made of coil tube that is hairy with lots of little spikes rather than connected to lots of large fins? Yes, that is called a spine fin condenser coil. I'm pretty sure that Train and American Standard have the patent on that, but I don't know that to be 100% true, but you will find it on Train and American Standard equipment. It is called a spine fin coil. There is a very unique way of cleaning a spine fin coil that a lot of people don't realize that has a lot of hair, dogwood, that cottonwood, that kind of stuff. It involves using a MAP gas torch. You have to be very careful about it. It's a very interesting method, but spine fin is very common on the on the Train and American Standard equipment. You're about 2 months into your apprenticeship and you're concerned about being impatient because you are eager to get your hands on everything and the technicians want you to take it slow. Any advice? That's a hard one because I know you're so eager to get your hands and get in there. Just be the best apprentice you can be. Your technicians are going to give you more freedoms the more you help them. So when you're shadowing in a journeyman or whatever, make sure that you have the tools for him that he needs before he even knows that he needs them. And what I mean by that, let's say you're doing a compressor change out and he's unsweating the compressor. Grab that recovery machine and take it down to the van because he's done with it. Bring his torches up, bring the vacuum pump up, have it ready before he even asks you to do so. Just doing that alone is going to help to prepare you for being a better service technician. Every time you go down to the van to pick something up, you bring something with you that you're done with if you can. Save yourself time so that way at the end of the job you have more time. Take lots of pictures and just ask questions when it's the right time to ask questions. So hopefully that helps you, bud. All right. Does R22 or R410A smell better? I don't know. I'm not in the habit of smelling them a lot. In all honesty, most of the time, it's a chemical mixture between the oil and the refrigerant that makes the unique smells. I've mentioned that before. 502 and mineral oil have a very distinct smell versus just 502. I don't go smelling all these different refrigerants, but you tend to get used to it when you're working on stuff. You smell it. But all right, let's see what else. John McMaster, what's going on, man? How you doing today? How long does a guy ride with me before I cut them loose in a van solo? Well, if they're a green apprentice, 6 to 8 months before I start giving them some more freedoms. More freedoms would include like getting into a separate van by themselves. Well, now with COVID, I don't have an apprentice with me, but he's probably not going to ride with me. So we're probably going to have to put him in a van right away, which kind of creates a problem or a dilemma for a service company because you don't make money off of an apprentice. And then you're paying a van payment, gas, mileage, wear and tear. That's kind of a pain in the butt. But in a perfect world, 6 to 8 months, and then I have him slowly moving out, doing preventative maintenances. Sometimes I might send him to a job 20 minutes before I get there. Go out there, talk to the manager, introduce yourself, get up on the roof, look around, and then I'll show up 20 minutes later and he'll have a report for me. And, we just kind of slowly let the reins off and let him kind of get his feet wet. Let's see what else. You need at least 5 years of experience to be competent at refrigeration. That's a good point. Yeah, I would say that. I mean, to be competent and do it all yourself, for sure. Yeah, you need a lot of experience for sure. Talk about approach method of charging. Well, the approach method is what I call an ass backwards measurement of subcooling. Okay. Approach method essentially is measuring the performance of the condenser. Okay. So approach method takes liquid line surface temperature versus outdoor ambient temperature. And what you're doing is you're taking a difference between outdoor ambient temperature entering the condenser and the surface temperature of the liquid line. And the manufacturer has done some calculations. You typically see this on Linux equipment. They've done calculations, and essentially they don't require you to get subcooling. They require you to look at approach temperature, okay? Now, you can use approach method on other equipment too. It's a great method if you do a lot of trending data or benchmarking, so that way you're confident that the system is working. Approach method, the really cool thing about approach method is you can actually hook up, you don't even have to hook up your gauges to the system. Doing approach method, you're taking surface temperature of the liquid line and outdoor air temperature, and you're measuring the performance of the condenser. So it's a gaugeless hookup to the system. Kind of cool, kind of revolutionary. And yet, Linux has been doing it forever and other manufacturers haven't jumped on the bandwagon. All right. Refrigerant smells. Yeah. All right, let's see what else. What's the oldest unit I've worked on? Probably something from the 60s. I don't think I've worked on anything from the 50s. So how do I change the oil on closed scroll compressors? You don't. If it's a scroll compressor, I mean, you tip over the compressor and pour it out, which is a pain in the ass. It might have a oil port on it if you're lucky. If it's a bigger refrigeration compressor, you can pump the system down to about 5 to 10 psi. Then you could drain the oil out of the oil port. But even that, there's still going to be oil left in the reservoir. So let's see what else. I already covered that. Why can't you pump down mini splits in heating mode? I'd have to think about that one. I don't know that I've ever heard that in heating mode, but it's probably going to have to do with the storage capacity of the condenser, which is now the evaporator. Maybe there's not enough storage capacity. Well, no, but if you're, no, that makes sense because, again, real quick off the top of my head, because the compressor is going to be outside, and in order for you to pump it down, you're always going to have refrigerant stuck between the compressor discharge and what's now your condenser, which is the indoor coil. So you're always going to have refrigerant in that line, so pumping it down is not going to do anything. If you're pumping down a system that has a standard condenser outside, then what you're doing is you're trapping the refrigerant between the discharge line and the king valve, essentially, or the liquid line service valve is what you're doing. But if you're using it in heating mode, then the indoor coil becomes your condenser, so your refrigeration lines are always going to be completely full of refrigerant. So there's not really any pumping down happening. Yeah, that's a problem. All right, let's see what else. Your company will let guys straight out of school run solo, and they are not good. You try and help. Yeah, that's a problem. When people throw techs in a van way too soon, that creates a big issue. Man, I've got serious coke nose going on. It has nothing to do with my pop filter, by the way. Yeah, absolutely nothing to do with pop filter. Installer service, I love them both. But I'm a service technician by heart. But I mean, I love doing installs, but my installs are probably not as productive or fast as a normal install guy because I'm doing it from the service perspective, thinking about every aspect, plenty of room to do this, all this, So. Let me see what else we got in here. Only a heat pump. Yep. Right on. I really, really appreciate you guys. So at this point, no more HVAC talk. You guys have any personal questions you want to ask me, go ahead. We'll do this portion of the stream where we're not doing HVAC talk. So I went up to our local mountain resort this weekend and met my dad because my wife and my kids are out of town right now. Met my dad hanging out up there. And I was kind of amazed at the local mountain resort's called Big Bear. That's the name of the city. And I went up to Big Bear, and I was so amazed with how many people were up there. There was, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people in the village, which was insane. I mean, it was almost uncomfortable how many people there were. They had the streets shut down and to car traffic so people could just walk. I was amazed, but I guess it makes sense because a lot of people are home. They got nothing else to do, and they're all getting nice big unemployment checks. The federal unemployment ended this weekend, I guess, the extra $600. So that'll be drying up unless they change some stuff. But Oh, man. No, I don't install walk-in panels, Mr. Ice. So what's my favorite color? I don't know. I don't have a favorite color. What kind of games do I like to play? I don't really play games very much. I don't play any video games either. I don't play computer games or anything like that. I'm an outdoors person. When I'm not doing HVAC and editing videos, I prefer to be out hiking or camping, that kind of stuff. That's my passion, is outdoor. I've said this on a bunch of streams. I've said it many times, but in another life, in another world, I'd be a park ranger. Not changing anything about my family or anything like that. I'd be a park ranger like in Yellowstone, where, you know, there's nobody out there. Like, I'm just an outdoors person at heart. Will I ever make a video camping? Yeah, I have videos camping, but they don't belong on my YouTube channel. I have another YouTube channel that it's not of me camping. I think it was just me reviewing a campground that I went backpacking at. But yeah, I'd love to make like camping videos. That'd be kind of cool, for sure. I should make a Coke nose shirt. Yeah. The problem with the novelty shirts, guys, is that I have to order 200 shirts at a time to get the pricing that I get. So I'm not gonna make a novelty shirt that says Coke nose and order 240 of them. That's not gonna fly, because that's thousands of dollars in merch that I have to purchase out of my pocket. Not gonna happen. Do I like pineapple on my pizza? Unreasonable Steve. Okay. Pineapple, tomatoes, bacon, and jalapeno. Bam. Put some onions on there too. That's the epic pizza. I love pineapple on my pizza. Anybody that doesn't like pineapple on your pizza, there's something wrong with you. Come on. How much Coke do I do in a day? I don't drink Coca-Cola anymore. Coca-Cola is off my roster. Don't drink it at all. All right. How good am I at cornhole? This fool. I actually suck. My wife and I bought cornhole set when the whole virus crap started, and we don't even know what the hell we're doing. I am not coordinated when it comes to sports. So, and I'm blown away that, I don't know about you guys, but there was cornhole championships. I can't believe that there's official cornhole championships, and the dudes got like shirts that have sponsors on them, like they're freaking NASCAR drivers and crap. That's crazy. How many cats do I have, and what are their names? We have 2 cats. One of them's named, my wife's pain in the ass cat is named Callie, and then my kid's cat is named Lexi. Small little thing. My kid's cat's nice. My wife's cat's a pain in my ass. Let's see what else. Yeah, exactly. All right. Have I ever tried Paddock's Pizza? Never heard of Paddock's Pizza, Ernesto. How far can I kick a midget? Bill. Oh, that was a funny one, Bill. All right. Want to get launched out of a tube, towed by a boat. Couch potato. You know, we used to have jet skis, and I always wanted to buy the tube that you pulled that looked like a bullet. I think it was called the bullet. And basically it just has handles on the inside, and it's round. And the passenger, the person in the tube, they can't see anything because it just spins on the water as you're pulling it across the lake. It just sits there and rotates. I always wanted to get that one. We never did, though. We always just had standard inner tubes, but I always wanted to try that. And I don't know about you guys, but I always wanted to try the flying wing one or whatever that they discontinued because too many people got hurt. Because when you would go faster, it had wings on it and it would start to float. And then you'd go like really high in the air and people would fall and get hurt. I always wanted to try that too. Is a hot dog a sandwich? No, a hot dog is a sandwich. And to preface this, if you put ketchup on your hot dog, you're dead to me. Because mustard, onions, and dill relish is the only thing that belongs on a hot dog. Maybe some chili and some sauerkraut. But if you put ketchup on a hot dog, you're dead to me. And if you ever mix ketchup and mustard, you're dead to me too. Cornhole makes more sense than competitive eating. Yes, it does, Dave. It definitely does. All right. What's my favorite color? I don't really have a favorite color. Maybe blue. Did I ever get your... Yeah, Ernesto, I never answered your email. I forgot about it, dude. I'll try to look at it again. Remind me, text me or message me or something just to remind me to look at it. You take it, I don't fish. I love to fish. I don't get to fish enough. Actually, that's why my thing right now is I've been trying to find a kayak. I want a really cool fishing kayak. The 2 kayaks that I'm looking at a Malibu Stealth and a bona fide, I think it's a SS 127, is the 2 kayaks that I want, and I can't find them in stock anywhere. But I'd love to get those fishing kayaks so that way I could have some time on the lake by myself. But yeah, I love fishing. I haven't done it enough. I punish myself by buying a fishing license every year that I don't use. But that's my punishment, is that I have to buy the fishing license. So, Ambrosi Pizzeria in La Mirada next time I'm in the OC area. Yeah, I'll definitely look that up because I work in La Mirada. I work in La Habra all the time, which is right next to La Mirada. I work in Buena Park. I actually grew up in Cyprus, of all things. I went to elementary school. I lived in Cyprus over off of Hvacr Street from essentially 3 years old until I was 12. Went to King Elementary School over off of... oh, geez, I can't even think of the street name anymore. But yeah, I grew up in Cyprus. I have family all down there. What lake have I gone to the most for fishing? Big Bear Lake or Silverwood Lake are the two that I went to the most for fishing. I've been to Diamond Valley Lake. I've been to Lake Skinner. Done a lot of fishing at the Colorado River. Done a little bit of ocean fishing. But yeah, that's it mostly. Make my own kayak. Nope, not that good. All right, let's see what else. Malibu Stacy is a saint. That sounds like an interesting name. There is 10 acres for sale with a 50-acre lake moved back to Missouri. Ike, yeah, and that's funny. So from birth till 3 years old, I lived in Missouri. I was actually born in Rolla, Missouri, and then moved to Cypress, California at 3 years old. So I would love to move back to Missouri, but my wife and kids would not be able to handle the weather, the humidity, the seasons, any of that stuff. They're beach girls. My wife is a beach girl. She loves the beach. My daughters do too. So there's the answer to your kayak question. Now June Lake. Oh, June Lake. I forgot. Yes, I did go to June Lake. I have been to June Lake a bunch of times. It's beautiful in June Lake. My dad and I did a great fishing trip up there probably about 15 years ago. Haven't been back since. My family and I used to go camp up there too. So I really like June Lake. It's super nice. Super nice. Room tour. Maybe I have a video on here. Look on my YouTube channel. Just look up Studio Tour on my YouTube channel. It shows everything in here. What's my favorite trail? My favorite trail. That's a good one. I don't know. Maybe Castle Rock Trail in Big Bear. That's a really good trail. That's a really easy one. It's just an uphill hike for maybe like 2 miles or something like that. That's a really easy one, but it has great views of the lake. Recently, my wife and I and my kids, we went up to Mount Baldy, which is a local mountain, and you take the ski lifts up and you can hike around on top up there. I've never hiked to the top of Mount Baldy, though. Some of my dreams are to, I wish I would have done it when I was 17. That's another thing, too. Not regrets, because I don't ever want to change anything about my family, my wife, my kids, but I wish I would have hiked the Pacific Crest Trail by now. Always wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, but you need like 3 months, 4 months. And you start in Mexico and you end in Oregon, or you end at the Canada border, essentially, if you go all the way. But I've always wanted to do that for sure. Do I like to go Ombia Music Store? I don't know what you mean by Ombia Music Store, but never been to that. I don't know what that is. Dave, yes. There we go. Dave has the right idea. Dave says he can make me a better deal on 10 acres in Costa Rica. Now, I've been to Costa Rica twice. Absolutely love it. Went there once with my brother where we did the ultimate backpacking trip where just me and my brother had absolutely no plans. We just got on the bus and went from village to village. Spent a bunch of time. I loved it so much. I took my wife back 2 years later and we spent a week there. I haven't been able to go back. I really want to go back and take my kids. Costa Rica is a beautiful place. I didn't do anything by the ocean. I was in the countryside the whole time when I was in Costa Rica, both times. When my brother and I were there, we started in San Jose, which is where you fly into. We went to Monteverde. We went to Arenal. And then we went to, I can't remember the last town. There was another town too. And then my wife and I, we went back and we stayed in Arenal for a week. But it's the countryside. It's so cool, too. The cool thing about Costa Rica, if you guys ever get the opportunity to go, is at least at both times that I've been, I don't speak a lick of Spanish, and it's okay. They don't speak a lick of English, but they're so patient, and they're so cool. Like, they're okay with it, you know? And it's just so nice. Such a great place. Road Toads, thank you so very much for becoming a channel supporter, man. You're awesome, okay? Remember, guys, that I spent a lot of time in Mexico, too, as a kid growing up, doing, like, family vacations and different things like that. But Costa Rica, by far, has to be probably one of my favorite vacations ever. Spent a lot of time in the Caribbean too, going on cruises and different stuff like that. But hey, I really, really appreciate you guys all coming into this stream. Remember that I'll have the merch up hopefully by the end of the week, hopefully by this weekend, hvacrvideos.com. We'll have all the different sizes from 4X all the way down. We'll have plenty of them. Like I said, I got 50 and 50 on the hats coming, small and large. Those will be here too. So check that out when it does come in. I'll try to post something on social media. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I'm going to go make myself some dinner. Scott, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That's awesome, bud. But yeah, we'll catch you guys next week. See you on the overtime show actually this week if you guys come check out the show on Friday. Okay, I'm going to cue up the outro music. Oh, dude. Road Toads, thank you so very much for upgrading your supporter channel or your channel supporter, dude. No, Dan, I've never scuba dived. My dad does, my brother does, but I never got into it. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cue up the outro music. I'm gonna go find myself something to eat for dinner, and we will catch you guys on the next one. If y'all could do one thing, if y'all could take one thing from my videos or my live streams, please stop, take a second, take a step back, and look at the big picture. when I'm thinking of this, I hear a little bit of Miami Vice. I hear a little bit of, what else do I hear? Maybe Flight of the Navigator. Yeah, I hear some Flight of the Navigator in this too. I don't hear Pokemon because I never played Pokemon. So, Flight of the Navigator. And then the guitar right now is like a Van Halen riff right now. Yeah, I definitely hear some Van Halen guitar sounds, some Eddie Van Halen weird guitar sounds with drills and different things like right now. All right. Yeah, no, I couldn't do it any longer. I'm bored now. I need to go eat dinner. I broke my camera. No. I'm bored. I got nothing else to do. All right, I'm going to close this stream out. We'll see you guys later.